Hey everybody, this is Patrick from the Poison Pen Bookstore here with another of our virtual events. And we're here with our good friend, longtime friend, Walter Mosley. And it's an honor to have you here on publication date of your brand new Easy Rawlins novel
Thank
called
you.
Blood Grove. Just a fantastic book. And it's always welcome to have Easy back. And it's pretty, I was just thinking about it. I think I first became aware of the books with this little gem right here. And here's the first edition copy of the book that kind of puts you on the map. And, just watching the arc of your career from the very beginning has been a real pleasure. And you've taken us on quite a journey.
Well, thank you, Patrick. I think it's always been great working with you guys. So it's fun. It's always good to be there, even if it's only virtually.
Yeah, hey, it's better than the alternative, which is nothing right now.
That's right.
Yeah, we were just talking a little bit before we got started about this new book. It's set in 1969, which not unlike the period we find ourselves in right now. It was a very, very tumultuous time, social upheaval. An awful lot of different things coming together at that particular moment in time. And Los Angeles on top of it in 1969. What a surreal and in some ways magical, apocalyptic environment. Can you talk a little bit about setting a book during that time and what you did to sort of prepare for that?
Well, I don't know how much I did just to prepare, but except for to feel, what was going on. You have Easy Rawlins. He's just about 50 years old, 49. He's been a long time in Los Angeles. He's kind of successful now. He's found a really good place to live where his daughter, can be raised safely. He doesn't have to worry about people coming after him. He's owns a business. He has a couple of good partners. They're out of town right now. He just, this is the worst thing that happened to him. He solves a case for a guy, a very rich guy, finds all this money that's been stolen from him. He comes back, but the money is being held because the authorities have to figure out what was stolen, what wasn't stolen, what happened. And so the guy can't pay him, but he does give him he gives him for $1 for a year his Rolls Royce, his very expensive Rolls Royce, and Easy takes the car. That's the worst thing. I didn't get the money, but I got the Rolls. Of course, he's a black man in America in 1969, so the police do stop him every other block. And he has all that problem. He's and then a big thing in the 1960s, late 60s, even early 60s, the Vietnam War. There's a white war vet that comes to talk to him, and he's experiencing PTSD, but he didn't even know what PTSD is. It's like, and so it is that period of time where people are changing. Young people are thinking one way, older people are thinking another way. There's that generation gap. We were talking earlier about the assault on the Capitol. One of the most interesting things about it is you see the generation gap. You see the one person who gets arrested for breaking into the Capitol, and then you see their children having turned them in or saying, I'm really embarrassed by this, I hate you. There's that generation gap again, and it's kind of it was a really interesting moment where people, some people got along, some people didn't, but it was a very difficult, very kind of exciting and frightening time. The Chinese, they say, you should live in interesting times.
The curse, yeah,
that's a curse. It doesn't feel like a curse, but it is. Yes.
Interesting times, yeah. Now you were in Los Angeles. I mean, I'm not gonna give your actual physical age here, but you were in your teens during this time period in LA. Is that correct? You hadn't left LA yet, right?
No. Mm-hmm.
What was it like? What are some of your memories before we get into the book? What was the feeling that you are going back to when you're thinking about that time period?
It was really exciting. And it was really kind of lovely. Like for instance, the Sunset Strip then was at night. There were thousands, literally thousands of long-haired, barefoot people going up and down the streets. There was all, the you know the nightclubs, the rock clubs, like Whiskey a Go Go, places like that. You if you could get in, if you walked in, that you walked in, and they put a tab of acid on your tongue. It was people were lit. Then you had all these soldiers, coming back from Vietnam, who were kind of crazy, and you didn't even really you kind of understood it, but you kind of didn't. The police were on the whole dead set against um, these young people with long hair and these other people with dark skin, um, and there was a kind of an identity. So it's so funny when when you finally feel that you're a part of the revolution, which I think many people thought they were part of a revolution, even if they couldn't name it. They felt it. When you feel it, you actually feel it. Rather than feeling oppressed, you feel that you have a calling, a purpose, a meaning. you know uh, I'm not saying that Easy felt this. Easy just said, "Hey, listen, this guy's a veteran. I'm a veteran. I'm gonna try to help him out," which was but he knew even at the time he shouldn't do it. He knew it was a mistake, and that's the other thing. I know I shouldn't do this, but here we go.
Well, it's pretty remarkable, and I wanted to kind of get into this with you. The whole business of PTSD, and although, as you say, they didn't have that. I
Mhm.
mean, the wonderful character Christmas
Black.
Black in the
Yeah,
book. He says, "I don't believe in battle fatigue," somewhere in the book, and you've got Easy as a World War II veteran. As you say, and he's almost 50 years old. He's 49, and there is a massive generation gap between him, even Easy himself, and this young guy who's just back from Vietnam. But as you say in the book, that whole experience, uh, all of a sudden, you know, that shared experience unites them
yeah, yeah,
across that divide. And it seems like the book, in many ways, a lot of it's about veterans, of combat.
yeah,
And
yeah. No, and there good and bad responses to that. I mean, there's a lot of veterans, and Easy is he's trying to do with them, and not just that. I mean, Mouse's new girlfriend is she was part of the Viet Cong, and she was like, she worked for two, but she was like blowing up things in Saigon, and finally had to run. She has a big scar down her face. These are people, all kinds of people who have deep commitments to what's right and what's wrong, and are willing to die for it, and willing to live for it. And it's it's everybody. It's the mob is involved, because some money has gotten stolen. And I have a whole variety of femme fatales, which
oh
is
yeah,
really fun, because the bravery. I mean, a lot of this book, I mean, a lot of it is about the wars, from World War II to the Vietnam War, but also a lot of it is about the strength of women. You have incredibly, strong-minded women who are not afraid of you. You walk in and go, "I'm a big old man." I said, "Well, I'm not scared of you." And it's because, listen, I live my life. I refuse to have a gun in my house, because I refuse to have a man scare me that much. It's all of these things, are and that's kind of, not the beginning of, but it's kind of an offshoot of feminism, where it's just these women who are saying, "Okay, you're not going to mess with me. You're not going to mess with my money. I am going to succeed no matter what." And I don't know. It's funny when you can kind of make your characters, rather than make it's a political book, no question, but rather than make them part of a political movement, make them understand, I'm making my stand for my individuality and my importance, my liberation right here. you know and that's I mean, I don't know if I was trying to do that, but by the time I got to the end, I saw that I had done it.
It's funny.
There's also a thing. Just one more thing. There's also a thing that there's a character in the thing who's he's a redneck. He's from Mississippi. He and his father and his father's father and his father's father and his father's father's father, had no truck with black people. For him to call somebody uh, colored was a compliment. That said, well, yeah, that's a colored boy. That's a compliment. He's in prison. He's a white guy. He's the only person in prison. I mean, he's in prison, and Easy is the only person who knows that he's innocent. Easy proves that he's innocent because he has to because of another case. But they won't let him go because they said, listen, he's admitted to the crime, and he's saying, well, he might have admitted to the crime, but here's the criminal and here's the proof. And he finally gets the guy out of prison, and the guy whose father and father's father and father's 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 father, all of those people who hated black people, 15 seconds after Easy got this guy out, started calling him Cousin Easy. He said, okay, Cousin Easy, I know who you are, you know who I am. Like that, let's just be clear. So much of that has happened in America, is happening in America today. When you see Black Lives Matter, when you see the showdown in politics between Trump and Biden. I mean, it's kind of wonderful, and it's frightening. Because as much as it makes people feel they're doing the right thing, it makes other people feel that their lives have fallen apart.
Yeah, yeah. The stakes are pretty damn high, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned all the strong female characters in this book, and there are some I really wanted to ask you about. I thought that what was her name, Vu Von Lin? Is that correct?
Yeah.
What
Yes.
what a wonderful surprise! Here she is working as a mechanic, and of course she's the one who's able to finally capture Mouse's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk about her at all? Was she how did she happen to come to you? Was it just a good
Listen,
day of writing?
it's almost like it's almost like I was in Easy, because Easy's gone through a whole bunch of emotional stuff inside of his mind. He wants to get his Rolls Royce, but it's in the shop, and it needs its 3-month tune up, and he's walking there. And while he's walking there, I don't know. I know he's going to walk to a garage. I know he's going to go in the garage. I know the guy who owns the garage is not going to like him. But when he calls for the other, the mechanic, Lynn, it's this Vietnamese woman who's not only Vietnamese, she was a Viet Cong. I mean, she's
Yeah.
like completely serious, completely beautiful, and deeply scarred. I mean, physically, probably emotionally too. And for me, it was just perfect. And of course, the first thing she asks Easy is, "How's Mouse?" Because that's what all beautiful women ask Easy first. How's Raymond? And you say, "Yeah, Raymond, he's fine. He's fine. Don't worry. I never seen him but 2 days in his life that he hadn't been happy, you know." And
Right.
it was like, yeah, this is the right thing, which led, to the whole. There's a kind of a transcendence of Mouse in this book.
Yes.
He's becoming a new man, and that's all part of it. You don't know if Lynn has made the change in him, or if the reason he's drawn to her is because the change has already happened. You know.
And then you've got the wonderful French character. Is it Aziette? Is that how you'd
Oh yeah,
pronounce it?
the woman who she's been around for a few books. A beautiful young French woman who, the French who love black soldiers when they came in, to liberate France, and she's in love with Easy, and Easy's, I mean, she's taught him lessons. It's a he thought he knew all about love and sex and all this stuff, but he's learned stuff from her. It's not really from her, it's really from the 1960s. Free love has made a whole different way of looking at the world. And that's been really fun too. That's there's a it's just it, there's there's such complexity. If you really live your life in Los Angeles, in New York, in Chicago, in New Orleans, if you really live your life there, you really look at where all the underlying connections are. Like all the fungi, the mushrooms that grow underground in the forest. They just link everything together. There are things happening that we don't even see, we don't even know, and Easy knows these things. Easy knows these people. He knows Christmas Black, and he knows Raymond Alexander, and he knows Jackson Blue, who's a whole other kind of threat. You know,
Yeah.
you know it's and Fearless Jones. It's fun
Right.
bringing Fearless into these things. Fearless, who's just he's not afraid. He isn't intelligent in the way that our limited IQ tests are, but his emotional IQ is off the chart.
You
He understands people.
and you even have Charcoal Joe in this one a little bit
Yeah,
towards
yeah.
the end. I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful, very cinematic all-star cast.
Yeah,
The book,
it felt easy to bring them all in, because it was a very difficult mystery, but for Easy to work out, but you know, it it was broad. It covered a whole bunch of places. And in order to get to those places, Easy had to deal, with the people he know. He had to deal with Jackson. He had to deal with Christmas. He has to deal with Raymond. I mean, yeah, Raymond, who does it looks like he's might not even be a bad guy anymore. And he said, "Well, what should I do about this dude?" And he said, "You should stop asking questions, and you should get yourself a gun." And he says, "Wow, that's the first time I've ever felt happy that Mouse suggested me kill somebody." you know,
right?
it's it's there's a kind of a wonderful, really, I think, really big. I mean, you say cinematic. I mean, that's true. A real big view of Los Angeles at that time. I mean, all the books aren't going to be like that, but this one, it was fun. It was fun to do it, and it was fun uh, to see how complex the relationships are. I mean, I'm happy when Easy gets stopped by the police for the third or fourth time in the book, probably about page 60, and they stop him, they talk to him, they search him, they question him, they search him, they talk to him. And Easy begins to think that, if I had, that would took about 12 minutes or 15 minutes. He said, if I had all those quarter hours all lined up in a row, I could build me like a 9-year-old boy filled with hatred, you know, because that it happens everywhere, not only with the police, happens with, people, when you're applying for a job, happens when you want to, get a room in a hotel, it just happens. And, I won't say it was fun to write about that, but it felt good to talk about that, but not talk about it in a political sense,
Right.
not kind of list it, but just to say, okay, how's he going to get out of this one? How's he going to get out of that one? And really, when he meets Mrs. Killian, Craig's mother, the you know,
Lola,
huh?
Miss Lola,
Yeah, Lola. Uh,
trouble.
she's a whole other case.
Mm.
When she talks to Easy, she says, "Well, what it's like with people like you and me. You know, yeah, here I'm a whore and you're a nigger. So what? And it's just it is kind of the way I experienced that time between 68 and maybe 75, 76. It is the way I experienced America, not just LA, all of America.
But then, of course, you saw this, and I don't think we actually spoke about this once I started the Facebook thing, but I was making the observation at the very beginning that the book, when I was reading it, it has this sort of dreamlike, slightly technicolor, psychedelic, fragmented yet together feel, and I think that it sounds like that was very intentional and it very appropriate for the time period. The story.
Well, it is the time period, I mean, uh, Easy's adopted daughter, Feather, she had her real uncle, has
Yeah.
come from the East Coast. He's a hippie, hair down to here, and thinking that he understands the world, which he doesn't. But he's trying. That's a good thing. Seeing him or even Easy's neighbors in the business at his office, the neighbors are hippies growing marijuana in a kind of a small hothouse in the back, and Easy is, he has a certain kind of relationship even with them. Um, but that's the way it was. I mean, that's the way everything was. It wasn't, we weren't as shut down. I mean, I know we're having a quarantine now, but we've been shut down for a long time. The connection between all the volatility, the motion of people growing and changing and learning in America, has really slowed down. I mean, a lot exists on the uh,
Hmm.
internet, you know but there's something different about the internet, and actually, getting out and saying, well, I got to go up to see my cousin in Chicago, and you get out on the road and you just start hitchhiking. It's a completely different
Yeah.
internet experience. It's another kind of internet.
That's a really interesting observation. I'm gonna have to think about that for a minute. Yeah. Los Angeles, kind of getting back to that time period and the great flowering of music
Mm.
and art that came out of that period. When you get to 69, we're getting to what I think of as Altamont, the kind of the end of the 60s, where that disillusionment is starting to set in, and you're about to tip the corner into that 70s burnout, where maybe these dreams of changing the world didn't work, and all that. It's fascinating period.
It is a moment where, and of course, if you were, and if not if you were political, but if you're black in America, you kind of understood this. He said, well, yeah, you know, when he's talking to his daughter's uncle, um, and the guy says, listen, man, you and I are just the same. He said, no, we're not just the same. And he says, no, 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 we are, man. I'm telling you that. I said, I can prove we're not the same. Cut off your hair, get yourself a dark suit, a white shirt, and a red tie, and see how far you can make it. And see if I did the same thing, how far I could make it. And we knew that, but that didn't matter in a way, because the people who were attempting to make the change while they were attempting to were important people. I mean, when you listen to BB King, the first time he went to the Fillmore, he's like, they hired him for a gig at the Fillmore, and he drove around that place like 8 times. He said, that can't be where we're playing. Look at all those white people out there, and they said, no, baby, this is it. We're here, and they were there, and today, right from there today, with hip hop music, that you have, one of the reasons that so many people of different colors were involved in the Black Lives Matter is because of the music they listened to, which opened them to lives that they had no idea about before, listening to it, hearing it. So even though a lot of people, I think, did give up, their commitments, the commitments stayed alive,
Yeah.
and today people are still, living with them, and in that way, Easy is a very modern character.
If you, and this is just kind of a fun question, if you were to put together a soundtrack, how some writers put together a little listening soundtrack for this book, can you think of some of the songs that you would put on, or some of the artists that BB maybe?
Well, definitely, BB King would be wonderful to have, but I would probably more likely Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, who are always in LA. Lightning Hopkins, he would be a lot of fun. Otis Redding would be fun. Janis Joplin, you can't be without her. Jimi Hendrix, there is no '60s without Jimi Hendrix.
That's right.
I also I think the Jefferson Airplane is a lot of their music would fit because it's so psychedelic.
Right.
I that I think about that as there's probably more, but
Sure.
the idea, so many people, like the Animals, so deeply impacted by the blues,
Yeah.
listening to those blues. I remember my friend Paul Coates was talking to me once, and he was in Vietnam, and he had to live in these barracks with these, these white guys from, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, and they liked, country music. And one day he just wanted to make fun of them, so he went out and bought a country music album, and put it on playing for when they came in. And when they came in, they said, "Oh my God, what is that shit? What are you playing?" And it turned out it was Bob Dylan. Now, Bob Dylan sounded like redneck music to Paul. But then after that, he started listening to it. He said, "Oh yeah, it is different. He's saying something else." It's really fun.
Have you heard, just kind of going off topic a little bit, have you heard about this new documentary that's coming out called The Summer of Soul? Questlove is bringing it out, and it's 1969, and I just saw something about it, and it looks pretty remarkable. It was about the Black Woodstock. It took place in Harlem, the Harlem Cultural Center, and it was just this incredible, the
I don't know
staple.
anything about it. It sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming out, and it's had Sly and the Family Stone, who's, oh man, somebody should make a documentary about Sly if they haven't already.
No, he's still here in LA somewhere hiding. I know. He's he really, Sly, he impacted everybody, as much as Little Richard did. It's amazing. Just the culture of America is so incredible, so extraordinary. I think of the time that they went to Little Richard and they said, "So you want to buy that boy band, that's been hanging around, they like you, the Beatles, you want to buy them?" And they said, "No, man, I don't have time for those white boys." He must have been kicking himself for the rest of his life over that. But
Well, do you remember what Muhammad Ali said after he met the Beatles?
What was that?
Well, I probably shouldn't say.
Oh no. I remembered it.
It was a great quote.
Okay. We don't have to.
I'll tell you after we sign off here. Okay. And let's see here. Sorry for keep looking at my phone. I'm trying to monitor the Facebook feed. And so everybody who's watching, by the way, if you have questions for Walter, I will do my best to chime in with some of these after a while. But there's so much to talk about, always. And I don't want to kind of belabor the issue of the veterans experience or the PTSD, but it's such a big part of the book. And just getting back to it a little bit about how Easy's generation, the difference in I don't know, I'm not sure if I really have a question framed here yet, but it seems like the World War II generation, largely, it was something they just did not talk about, and it was dealt with alcohol, alcohol and silence. And was your father, not to get too personal, but was your father in the war? Would he have been of the right age?
He was in World War II.
Was he? Yeah.
Here's my father's story about World War II. He didn't want to go. He got drafted. For some reason, he felt, rather than go hide back in Louisiana, he was going to go. So he leaves, with about 80, 90 people from Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas. He knew most people he went in with. They went over. They pretty much traveled around together. If there's 90 of them, 78 made it back. Every once a couple people might have gotten killed from some kind of advance or attack. Most people, people had heart attacks. People had accidents. People died. Some people died. But when he got back to Fifth Ward in 46, I think, when he got back to Fifth Ward in 46, almost every person he had known there was dead. They had died from alcohol poisoning. They had died from fighting over women. They had died fighting with the police. They got arrested one night and just never showed up again. Almost everyone. And so, and what he said to me, which is, it's such an amazing thing. He said, Walter,
safer in the war, huh?
I was safer in the war than I would have been home in my own bed. The biggest war in history.
Wow.
And that's that thing, that's the thing. But I was just today I was reading, when McKinley got assassinated. It was 1901 by this a Polish guy, first generation, young guy who's an anarchist. Talked to Emma Goldman, done all that stuff. Um, he shot McKinley, I think twice. And then this guy behind him knocked the gun out of his hand, hit him in the face, broke his nose, hit him again, knocked out some teeth, hit him again, and just knocked him out. And this is a guy named James Parker, who was a black man. And when they interviewed him, he said, "Well, listen, that was the most famous man, the most important man in America, McKinley." He said, "I had to put my life on the line for that." And then after that, they said, "Well, we can get you a lot of money. We can take your picture." And you did. Said, "No, man, no pictures. I'm not." And he said, and his words were, "I don't want to make any capital, off of this terrible event." It's like, it's, I don't know. I mean, who are we? I mean, I don't even think that we know. I never heard that story before today, and I just happened upon it. No, my father got back from the war, and he just he said, I got to get out of Fifth Ward. It's dangerous." And he
So
came to Los Angeles.
LA, yeah. Whereabouts in the city did you guys settle?
Well, we lived in Watts, just in and around Watts, South Central, until I was about 12. Then we moved over to what used to be called West LA. Now it's called Mid City, near Fairfax and Pico.
Oh, wow.
And we lived there for, until I left.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I think I may have told you last time. My grandfather was a police officer in LA during the 40s and 50s.
Uh-huh.
And he ended up dying very young, but in kind of a James Ellroy sort of noir way. But my mom has these amazing memories of just being a little girl, in the late 40s. And his thing was he was in charge of running security at some of these Hollywood premieres.
Mm.
And so she has these wonderful memories of, going to some of these premieres in Hollywood during that time. Pretty amazing. But LA, LA is just an endlessly fascinating, strange city. When I go there, I still see that, it has that kind of occult underbelly to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No question.
Hard to put your hand, and then, the ghosts of the pasts are not never very far away in the city.
And then of course you have the mafia, and you have, you have that whole blues circuit, which is extraordinary, the Chitlin circuit, and then you have, and LA is a place where all the new things happen, rock and roll, rhythm and blues. I mean, they might have started someplace else, but they flowered in Los Angeles. It's an extraordinary place, and too much for many and most people. New York is the same, and it's not the same way, but it has the same impact. If you try to live all the different parts of New York, you won't last long. You go back home.
Yeah. Was the Ash Grove in its prime during
Yes.
that time, late 60s? Did you ever go there as a young man?
I never did. I was there, but I never did.
Yeah, because I heard that a lot of the old blues guys would go through there. Lightning and all those guys.
It was really, our history. I just the other day, not maybe a few months ago, I was watching the Ken Burns documentary on country music. I had been avoiding that. I said, well, I don't want to. Why don't I listen to that country music? But then when I realized that country music has at least one whole foot into black music, I was shocked. That the song "May the Circle Be Unbroken," that's black gospel. And you're going, really? Well, and like, I mean, nobody knows it. I mean, I guess they're finding out now, but it was like, oh, that's the reason that, sometimes I like that country music. I had to tamp it down. Say, I'm not supposed to identify with those people, but.
Or some of that, wonderful Carter family stuff, or Lefty Frizzell, and yeah, there's some amazing stuff in there. Let's see, but just to kind of go full circle on the whole PTSD shell
Okay.
shock thing. I was talking to an author the other day, and boy, I cannot remember who it was. But we were talking about this same topic, and I, I brought up this whole business of how some of our Native American, Indian tribes, particularly the Navajo, and I know others, they have these series of rituals. I read about this in relation specifically to the code talkers, a lot of the code
Hmm.
talkers coming back. And they have these rituals that are set up to transition the warrior essentially, or from that world back into normal society. And boy, we could sure use something like that, couldn't we?
Yeah,
Some,
well, that's I mean that is what Freud attempted. For when because people came back, the thing then when the people came back, it was with hysterical blindness, deafness, not using the use of your legs, uh, it was all kinds of different things that there was no physical reason for. I couldn't find any kind of physical thing, and the whole notion of psychoanalysis then, which worked then, doesn't really work now, but it worked then,
hmm,
where if you could just get somebody to talk enough, they'll make deep enough connections to be able to be freed of these hysterical symptoms. And that was but it's not, you don't make money on that. The army didn't want to spend money on it. There are very few people who can go, get that kind of help, the modern help. When you have, so-called primitive societies, uh, well, that's just part of what you do. Oh, he came back. Well, first we got to put him out and let him sweat for 3 days, and you got to walk some hot coals, and then you got to eat this peyote and sit on top of this mountain, and then you got to talk to the old men, and then you can come back. I mean that kind of thing. I mean, and that's, but we don't have that, and we don't know that. We don't know how to help each other. And, you know, but that's America.
yeah. One of the things I've always admired about your stuff is that you don't sanitize the past for our protection. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, we are constantly, the great story about World War II that we like to tell ourselves is that we were all completely united against this common enemy.
Yeah.
Um, and I suppose there is a very serious difference between that war and the Vietnam War, but I was reading this remarkable book-length poem by the Scottish guy named Robin Robertson. I don't know if you've heard of him. He wrote a book called The Long Take. It's about a soldier coming back from war, and he ends up in Los Angeles, right after the war, and he's down on Skid Row, and Skid Row is full of veterans, full of veterans,
Yeah.
most of whom are minority veterans, that the country is essentially chewed up and spit out, pretty amazing book.
Chewed up, spit out, and forgot.
Forgotten. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you watch that Peter Jackson documentary about World War I,
Mm-hmm.
the British soldiers are saying the same thing. We come back from war, there's no work, we're forgotten about.
Yeah.
Um, they were probably saying that back in ancient Greece too, weren't they?
Well, every once in a while it's okay. I mean, I think that people coming back from World War II didn't have that bad an experience, as broad a bad an experience as the people coming back from Vietnam, or even
Sure.
Korea. um it is an interesting moment where but no matter what it is, the amount of bad things that are allowed to happen in the name of war, it's, well, it's horrendous, and we live it. I mean, just in World War II. I mean, World War II it's just a continuation of World War One. you know it's like, I mean, we learned after that and said, no, 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 we're not going to leave them poor. We're going to actually give them money. Let's say, let's help rebuild Italy, rebuild Germany. Forget England. Let's take care of Japan. And but I mean, it's a better idea. Rather than just kind of simmer your enemies. Is somehow to say, well, come on, we'll join you. We'll work with you. You know.
And so in the book in Blood Grove, you've got at least one this wonderful veterans bar, a Little Anzio.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I love some of those scenes that were set there.
It was fun to write about it because you have this veteran, and Easy doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust Craig Killian, so he needs to find out about him. So he talks to his mother, and that's Lola. She's something else. And then he finds out there's a bar that he used to go to. It's a bar that it's not a real veterans bar. Because a real veterans bar, wouldn't allow some of the people, who got, bounced out of the army. It wouldn't let them come. And Easy is shocked by it because there's as many people of color as there is, white people, and it's like, and they're living together and working together and talking about stuff, and people have all kinds of different notions and memories of what war is. We have some, veterans from World War I even in there,
Yeah.
and it was a kind of a wonderful idea, like a place. It was a place that Easy felt at home in. I mean, because the whole book Easy is regaining all of the knowledge, the wiliness, and the strength that he needed to survive in World War II, uh, and and that was part of it. To go there, to talk to these people, to hear what they had to say, to share stories with them, because you can't, if they're gonna tell you their story, you have to tell them your story. And that was for me. It was very exciting, exciting just to talk about these people who I knew. I mean, like we all knew these when we were kids. I mean, we all knew these people. Your mother knew these people, right? These are the people who came out of the war. We talked to them. We sat there, with them, and they were very quiet. And every once in a while, I said, "Well, he was in the war, and that some terrible thing. You shouldn't, talk too loud or blow up firecrackers or something." But it was great.
Yeah, and just to put a final period on it,
Yeah.
the scenes themselves, when you discuss Killian's his behavior, his how he reacts to that sonic boom.
Hmm.
Um, those are some of the most powerful scenes I've read in a long time. And how did you prepare to write a scene like that? Was that something where you did a little research, or was it just something that you
Yeah.
had
Well,
in your gut? You knew what you were doing.
I mean, I remember the sonic booms. They were wonderful. I mean, like all of a sudden, boom, and you go, well, what was that? And so, oh, it's nothing. It's just the plane breaking the sound barrier, which breaking the sound barrier didn't even make sense to me. But I said, what do you mean? There's like a sound barrier? What? But no, I was just writing, because Easy has gone through this thing. As he remembered a moment where he almost died, and he really felt that he might just die just remembering it.
Right.
And he comes out of it, and he's sitting at his desk, and he realizes somebody is in the office, complex. And so there's all kind of suspense kind of anyway. And when they come in and they start talking, and he sounds so crazy and unwilling to talk, and Easy has to keep pushing him, and then that sonic boom. you know I mean, I hadn't expected that, but I didn't know what was going to happen then. I said, well, maybe we could have a sonic boom. They had them. And then Easy could really understand uh how damaged this young man is, and that how much that you know just the fact that he survived World War II means that he owes his kid something.
Right. Um, let's see here. Sorry, everybody, for hogging all the questions. We've got a lot of people watching, and let's see what we've got here. Um, what's the name of the book we're discussing? Blood Grove is the name of the book, and it is the 14th. Is that right? 14th or 15th? 14th?
I'm not sure. It's one of the two. Yeah.
Easy Rollins novel. And Walter was kind enough to sign a whole bunch of them. And I got to say, there aren't many of them left unsold. So if you want one, uh, give us a shout, and we should be getting those back pretty soon. And also, let's see here. What was I going to say? Whatever. All right, I'm just going to go into some of these questions here.
Okay.
All right, so Jan asks, will we ever find out what happened to Easy's wife, Edna, and his daughter?
I hope so. I hope so. That it hasn't come up yet in the story, but I've always wanted that. You know, I've always wanted it.
Amy asks, what kind of things do you like to paint?
You know, I'm not very good at painting, and you can see behind me, I'm a little paints that I do, and you know, I work. I've been working with oil lately on a larger scale. But my forms they're not really abstract forms. They're just you know, primitive forms. That's what I would call them. I have these primitive forms that I put on a. There's a background. There are lines across the page, and I put these you know, primitive forms in relation to those lines, kind of moving, you know. And I do that because when I was a kid and my parents used to read me stories, I just loved it. I loved the stories. I loved, you know, the you know, kings and the queens and the, you know, and the battling and the, you know, mountain of glass and all this stuff. I was like, great. And I thought that when I learned how to write, I would be creating that would be what I was doing, creating these wonderful stories. But instead, you know, it's A, B, 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 you know, and I hated it. And one day I remembered, I said, well, you know, what I wanted was to just be completely free. And so that's what I do. You know, I do the lines across the page and I draw these forms in relation to it. It looks like maybe they're telling you something or maybe not, you know, but it's fun. It's full of color and motion.
You know, it's funny. I've seen, and some of the people watching may have seen too, on YouTube or wherever, the mastery class commercials. And
Hmm.
I like some of what you say in just those little snippets. Um, do you find that you know, when it comes to sort of unblocking somebody's creativity, or uh, do you find it's sometimes a good exercise to write or to try out something that you have no idea what the hell you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. No, really, it's so important. You know, when you look at school, I mean, there's all kinds of things that mess you up in school. I mean, there's things where, you know, there was a time when they wouldn't teach girls anything, you know, except for, you know, you could learn how to be a housewife. You certainly are not going to go to college. You know, people of color, same thing. But you know, even when you're in school and they try to, like, you know, they try to get you to learn by getting you to follow rules, when creativity is always breaking rules. It's always, you know, cross pollinating rules. It's like, you know, well, how come we can't make social science and math together? And the teacher said, no, this is math. We're learning algebra. This is the, you know, the variable. This is the equation. This is, you know. And you know, if you spend all of your time doing that, and of course you're trying to do well, so you don't do things that you don't do well, because that'll, you know, bring down your grade average and keep you out of college. um you know, it's so painful. I think the idea of learning what real education is, you know, when you, all these people that people love today, they dropped out of college, you know. Said, oh yeah, college isn't good enough. I'll just build my own computer and do what I need to do over here. It's something I really believe, you know. I mean, I I hate it when people say, well, you know, we know, we're going to teach you, and say, well, no, we're going to learn together, you know. And that's the best way to do things.
I think we were talking last year about how we both love Thelonious Monk, you know,
uh
and how you know, here he is playing with his hands splayed out, and just a absolute genius, you know. And there's so many people like that, you know, as you say.
and you know, and he, you know, Monk was an interesting guy. I mean, Monk loved Bach. Sometimes would sit all day long and just play Bach, you know. And it wasn't, you know, he wasn't, you know, doing a lesson. Somebody wasn't telling him, well, if you play Bach well enough, you'll learn jazz, because they didn't need to tell him that. He could see the jazz in Bach. and he just wanted to, work out, those things so he could create somewhere else,
Yeah,
and yeah, you know.
absolutely. Okay, here's kind of a standard question, but a good one. Pat asks, if this is the first book I read, will I be able to understand the character stories, or do I need to read one of the earlier books? It's an
You
interesting
can
question.
read this book and you won't have to read the others. Hopefully, when you read this book, you want to read the others. But this book is, all the books, they stand alone. They have histories, but the histories are all, they're all implied. So you get, who Mouse is, who Jackson Blue is. It just takes you a paragraph and you got it. And then they're in the middle working together. So no. Oh yeah, and there's Frank Sinatra's in this one too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot to say that. I like it that Frank Sinatra's in it.
right.
Make-
Well, it seems like also these are books about friendship, really,
Yeah.
over long periods of time. All right, let's see. This person who has a great name, Willie Grits, which is a
All
good,
right.
that'd be a good blues man's name. Where do we stand with another Easy Rollins film or TV series? It seems to go back and forth.
It does, doesn't it? I recently, optioned, all the whole Easy series to Amblin, and Amblin seems to think that they want to make a series out of it. That would be very nice if we do that.
I hear, is the Ptolemy project still going?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm right. I've written it's a mini series. Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. I've written a mini series, and now I'm working out rewriting it. Sam Jackson is going to star in it. We're going to start shooting it on March 15th. you know
Wow,
so yeah.
that's exciting. Yeah. Here's a tough question. These are actually really good questions. Which of your books would you recommend as an introduction to your works? That's a toughie.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because there are different kinds of books. I For a lot of people, if you're interested in mystery and mysteries like that, um interested more in the straightforward kind of political element of it. um I would say Socrates Fortlow, always outnumbered, always outgunned, or one of the two after that. um there are a lot of women in the world who like Fortunate Son,
Mm,
because Fortunate Son, is about, it's about a black hero who seems to be anything but a hero. I mean, he's definitely not a villain, but he's so weak and set upon that you think, well, how could he be a hero? And he manages it anyway. And that was fun, Fortunate Son. But read the first page. If you like it, you can keep reading.
there's always The Man in My Basement. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, we're shooting a movie of that in England
Is that
not
right?
long ago. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Well, not in England. It's an English company. We're shooting it in Long Island. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Michelle asks, will we see a movie adaptation, excuse me, of the Leonid McGill series?
I don't know.
I'm sure they've all been optioned, right?
Well, no, I try not to keep them, out there optioned. I know a lot of people do that. So, if you get, X thousands of dollars for each one of your books every year, that pays, for August. But I don't do that. But I'd like to make a movie from Leonid. Leonid is fun. You
Yeah.
know, Leonid's fun. I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would do the first book or I'd do Karma, the short story.
Okay.
The short story is really, it gets everything right. I mean, after I wrote that story, I went, hey, I know what I'm doing here with this guy.
I have a couple of people who are chiming in about that documentary I was mentioning about the soul. What was it called again? Summer of Soul.
Summer of Soul
Yeah, I guess
69. Yeah.
I guess it screened at Sundance, and it's got
Oh, it did,
all
huh?
this incredible footage, of
Mm.
Sly and, as I said, the Staple
Hmm.
Singers.
Yeah, I teach at Sundance, but
Really,
and yeah, but I didn't buy the thing for I mean, I don't know, is that this year or is it a previous year? This year, it's all virtual. The film festival.
I
Uh,
think it is. I think. Well, I'm not entirely sure. I just saw it a couple of days ago, and it was part of a roster of films that were highly anticipated. And
yeah, no, I'll try to get a copy of it and see it.
it
That'd be
did
great.
say, yeah, it did say Questlove was the one who was working on it.
Yeah.
Um, and last time we spoke, I hijacked the entire conversation to talk about John Woman, which I think is one of the most fascinating books that you've of yours that I've ever read. And I have or I have at least one person saying, "How about another John Woman novel?" Is that
Well,
something that you could do, or is that done deal?
well, I'm not gonna. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I could, right? Of course, because John, we don't know what happened at the end of that book, right?
Right.
Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's not dead. It's hard to say. Maybe they killed him and took his body away. Um, I don't know. I haven't. I haven't. I think I'll read another Socrates before I write another John Woman. But I like John Woman. I like it that he's a. That I like it, especially the moment he realizes that he's the sociopath, right? Oh, it's me. I'm the bad guy. Okay. And just try to deal with that. I mean, because that you can be smart enough to understand. When I say smart enough, I mean intelligent with a strong will enough to deal with things which are not healthy.
Are you a fan of Percival Everett's work at all?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
He has that real um, slippery subversive novel called Assumption, which is kind of a similar, not exactly the same, but
Yeah.
yeah. I
You know,
was
when I was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award at the National Book Awards this last time, one of the things I did is I mentioned, because I'm the first Black male who has Lifetime Achievement from National Book Awards, and they've been given it a long time. And
they
and
didn't
I
give it to Chester Himes, did they?
They didn't give it to Chester Himes. They didn't give it to Ralph Ellison. They didn't give it to Amiri Baraka. They didn't give it to Percival Everett. They didn't give it to. I mean, really, there's a whole bunch of. I've named like 30 people, and
Octavia
I couldn't
Butler.
name. Oh no, but now for women, now they didn't give it to Octavia, but they have given it to women. They gave it to Gwendolyn Brooks, and I was actually the cause of that one. Toni Morrison and Oprah Winfrey. All three of those Black women got it, and deserved it. And I'm not competing with them, but you could say at one point, well, listen, man, you didn't give it to Ralph Ellison. You didn't give it to. I mean, listen, Amiri Baraka is one of the greatest writers America's ever created, and
What about Chip Delaney?
huh?
What about Chip Delaney?
Absolutely, absolutely. Samuel Delaney is like, he's an extraordinary thinker and writer. I mentioned him too at that thing. It's like because there are all these people, poets and fiction writers, nonfiction writers who, weren't um, recognized ever, but they were always considered, but they were never recognized. And uh, I think that in a really, really slowly way is changing in America.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and
Well, I mean, congratulations on that award. I wrote it down, and in my excitement I forgot to bring it up at the beginning. So congratulations.
well, thank you.
It was funny. I was talking about John Woman just briefly again. I had the pleasure of interviewing this writer named Kawan. You know, you know his work at all?
How do you
K
spell
apostrophe K apostrophe WAN.
I don't know. No.
Really interesting writer. And we were both talking about John Woman. Anyway,
Well, that's nice.
any excuse to bring that up.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I sent that book to 17 publishers before they published it. I sent it to one editor, and she wrote back and she said, you know, this isn't really a novel, but if you want to come in and talk to me, I could explain to you how you could make it into a novel.
Question. Yeah. And you bring up a good point. What what is it like for Walter Mosley to work with editors?
You know, I'm not, you know, I don't, there's some editors. Listen, I never had trouble with Paul Coates. He was my editor, for a long time. I don't have trouble at Atlantic, Grove Atlantic. Morgan there. I mean, that's goes pretty easy for me. You know, I get upset sometimes with people. You know, when you see them wanting to change, not to help you write what you wrote, but to change what you wrote. Like
Hmm.
this is a two-hander. You need to concentrate on only one character. So get rid of this character, and then you're going, wait a second, that's not my book. That's your book. Let me
Right.
read that book. Let me, and tell me how I can. If these two characters aren't working, tell me how they work, why they don't work, and how I can make them work. So and a lot of editors, especially younger ones, don't like it when you talk to them like that. They really don't.
Well,
They get upset.
yeah, to kind of wrap it up, I know we've kept you here just over an hour, but it's always so much fun to talk with you. Um, and I'm sorry, everybody watching. I know I kind of go all over the damn place, but that's just how I roll. um, what are you reading, and I don't know, what are you into right now? What, art wise, book wise, music wise? What are you kind of absorbing at the moment?
Well, Sean Cosby has a new book. It's not out yet. I've been reading it, though. I have a copy of it. I've been reading it, and that's been a lot of fun. Um,
Love that Blacktop Wasteland.
Wasteland, yeah, that's
Yeah.
like lovely. And I'm always reading something old, so I'm rereading The General and His Labyrinth by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Um, here, a couple of plays here and there, having fun with them. There's so much writing to do. When you're in Hollywood, wherever Hollywood might be, there's so much work on screenplays and scripts, and there's so many little details. Well, okay, if he's 5 years old here, and then you do that and you do that, and I'm going, what? So there's a lot of that going on. I'm going to hopefully Taylor Hackford and I are going to do a series about Louis Armstrong.
Oh, really?
And so I've been reading a lot about Louis, his own, because he wrote so many um, memoirs himself. And then so many people wrote about him. And of course, his music was, he created jazz. He had to be clear. Jazz was him. When he went to New York to play with Fletcher Henderson, um, and he just started, playing, and the band, of course, nobody liked him when they first met him. He was kind of big, and he was dressed like kind of country, but he started playing, and people, this didn't literally happen, but you could say it happened. The band member said, "Wow, man, the way you played that has swing." And anybody knows anything about jazz, there is no jazz if there isn't swing, right?
Yeah.
Swing created jazz, and it's true. Duke Ellington came to hear him one of those first nights, and he left, and he went back to his band. He said, "Okay, let's forget everything we've been doing. I learned tonight what we're going to be doing for the rest of our lives." And that's what Louis Armstrong was. He was unbelievable and unrestrained.
What's funny? I was talking with my wife about this. She's a big Tom Waits fan.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Mm-hmm.
Tom Waits too.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hear a lot of Louis Armstrong and Tom Waits.
Huh.
Just his whole, his whole persona. I digress. There is a great
Yeah.
question though. This guy Philip asks,
What's
and
that?
sorry, Philip, I meant to ask this earlier. Do you see connections between jazz improvisation and creative writing? I think I know the answer to that, but maybe not.
Well, I mean, of course, there's the potential for jazz improvisation to exist in the written word, in poetry, in fiction, even in nonfiction. Depending on what you're describing and how you're describing it, because it's the use of language. The reason I was stopping to think about it, I'm trying to think: is there any place that I don't see it? You know, I
Oh,
mean, when you're painting, when you're teaching your children lessons, when you're making love, like all of that, right? Is if you're not improvising, you're doing something wrong. It's like, and so that I think that you can see it in everything. Certainly in creative writing, no matter if it's fiction or nonfiction or poetry or whatever. Certainly, it's there.
you think it might be tapping into something that's just outside of yourself, or breaking, I don't know, breaking the boundary between yourself and,
Well, it's attempting. It's attempting to.
yeah.
Because a lot of times that you fail, uh, and you fail again, and you fail again, and you fail again, and finally, if you're doing it right, you finally hit something that works,
Mm.
because a lot of what times it's you're not going to do it right. I mean, if you're Louis Armstrong, Louis Armstrong came to play with King Oliver in Chicago. uh, Oliver would play something, and then Louis said, okay. And he would just follow every note and improvise on little ditties of notes behind every note that Oliver was going to play. I mean, it wasn't just that, it was like he was doing everything, right? Uh, you want to stay away from somebody like that if you're trying to improvise, because it's too hard. But I think that and when you're writing, you're making up things, you're letting stuff flow, you're saying it's not working, but it's telling you what it wants to be, and you get somewhere from there.
Well, in the little snippet of the mastery thing, I heard you talk about how, when you're writing, and you go to sleep and you get up, there's something that wasn't there the day before, just simply was not there.
Every
Um,
day, every day that you write, when you wake up the next day, there's something new, you
yeah,
know, because and that's different than improvisation. Improvisation is actually craft. When you get it going well enough, it's craft. But the thing is, if you write every day, or you paint every day, or you play music every day, when you wake up the next day, it's connected with parts of your unconscious, and your unconscious has come up with some new information. Say, well, why don't you try this? You did pretty good yesterday with that. Well, why don't you try this today? I think that is true for all of us. And it's hard, it's because a lot of people say, well, I can write on the weekends. And no, you could write every day. Just write 1 hour every day rather than 16 hours on the weekend.
yeah. I mean, to Philip's point, you think you listen to a John Coltrane or a Miles Davis solo, and they're starting off on a basic melody, but then
Oh,
taking you on this journey, and
yeah,
you watch the fingers, and they seem to have a muscle memory of their own. That's, it's pretty spellbinding to watch.
it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's take this in for a landing. Thanks everybody for hanging along with us here. Um,
Yes, thank you.
yeah. And what's next? I know you always have tons of projects going. Any other books in the works, or?
I'm going to write a new King Oliver novel. I don't know when I'm going to start it, but I have to have it for next year. So I'm going to have to start writing that soon. As I said, I have the mini series for Tommy Gray. They're shooting the movie for The Man in My Basement, and I hope to, I'm going to do some more work on Snowfall. There's always a
It's the
moment there.
Singleton show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's enough.
Have you
Shoot.
seen, by the way, the I think it's a Netflix show, a documentary on crack? Have you watched that yet?
I haven't, no,
It's
no,
pretty darn good. Yeah.
or pretty darn bad,
But pretty darn bad, exactly.
depending on what you're saying about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everybody, and Walter, thanks so much for spending so much time. You're always very, very generous with your time, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see each other in person in this new year at some point.
With the next book, I'll be there.
Sounds great.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.